My friends and I, quite the adventurous bunch. We thrive on the thrill of a good scare or anything that really gets our adrenaline pumping. There's this local legend that parents often tell their children to keep them from wandering too far. According to the story, the forest is haunted by the spirits of people who lost their lives on that land. Of course, the parents don't go into too much detail because they don't want to terrify their kids completely, but they say just enough to make sure the children know they should never venture into that forest. My friends and I had been planning a camping trip for months, but we never managed to go. Finally, this weekend, we decided to make it happen. And what better place to camp than the supposedly haunted forest? Everyone was on board with the idea, except for Sarah. I don't know, guys. When I think of camping, I imagine relaxing, making s'mores, watching the sunrise, not ghost hunting, Sarah said hesitantly. You can still do that. I'm sure it's just a story. I mean, you don't really believe there's a ghost out in the woods, do you? Mike asked her, trying to reassure her. I don't suppose so, but I'm just saying. I'd rather camp somewhere else, Sarah suggested, but nobody else wanted to change the plan. We packed up in my friend's van and headed out to the forest. We had a good number of people, so we weren't too worried about any potential bears or anything. There was Sarah, Mike, Ben, Chelsea, Katie, and me. We approached the turnoff and pulled onto a dirt path in the woods. The path was extremely narrow, and the leaves from the trees hung so low that they smacked the roof of our van. We parked the van and started unloading our gear. Guys, I really think we need to camp somewhere else. I don't like this, Sarah said, her voice tinged with anxiety. The rest of us couldn't help but laugh and poke fun at her for being so scared over nothing. Oh, come on, Sarah. Don't be such a chicken, Ben said, laughing. It's just a story. We set up camp and tried to enjoy the first night. The air was crisp, and the sky was a blanket of stars. We sat around the fire, roasting marshmallows and telling ghost stories to really set the mood. But as the fire died down and the night grew darker, a strange howling began to echo through the trees. What was that? Sarah asked frantically. It's probably just a wolf off in the distance, Mike answered. I personally didn't think it was a wolf. That wasn't a wolf howl. It was an eerie, mournful howl that sent chills down my spine. Sarah, Katie, and I were in one tent, while Chelsea, Mike, and Ben were in the other. I clutched the pocket knife I had with me. I knew it probably wouldn't do much harm, but it was better than nothing. The girls huddled together in a corner of the tent, their faces pale with fear. The howling continued, and nobody dared to go outside. After what felt like an eternity, the howling ceased. Instead, we could now hear footsteps running around the base of our campsite. I grabbed a flashlight and my knife, bursting out of the tent, ready to confront whoever or whatever was out there. Mike and Ben had come out too. Mike had a pistol and a flashlight, while Ben had just his flashlight. As we stood outside, the footsteps fell silent. We began to search around but found nothing. Carefully, we made our way back to our tents and tried to settle in for the night. I don't think anyone fell asleep. The next morning, we noticed our firewood was running low, so Mike and I decided to venture deeper into the forest to collect more. The forest was dense, and every snap or rustle from the bushes or trees made us jump. We didn't want to admit that we were getting a little spooked. As I chopped at a tree, I lifted my head to check on Mike, and to my surprise, he was gone. I called out for him, but there was no answer. Panic began to rise in my chest as I ran back to get the others. We searched the area for Mike, and when we finally found him, he was standing over a pile of dirty, torn clothes. staring blankly. Okay, whose clothes are these? Sarah asked, visibly shaking. They were probably left by previous campers from years ago, Ben said, trying to reassure us. We all headed back to camp, trying to shake off the unease. The rest of the day was tense, with every shadow and sound making us jump. Nobody wanted to admit they were getting scared, except for Sarah, who reminded us every 5 minutes that she wanted to go home. We tried to keep ourselves busy by cooking a hearty meal, but the fear lingered within us, creating an unsettling silence. That night, as the three of us tried to sleep, I saw a shadow move past the tent. Thinking it was one of the others, I called out, but instead, a hand pressed against the fabric of the tent. The fingers were unnaturally long, and the hand was so bony that I could make out the contours of each joint. I screamed, waking everyone up. We rushed outside, where the others from the second tent joined us. We need to leave now, I said urgently. Oh, so now you're scared too? Ben joked. I'm not joking. We need to get out of here, I insisted. Finally, someone is listening to me, Sarah said. We started packing our things and loading them into the van. Ben mumbled under his breath about how we were all scaredy cats and wimps. I didn't care. I had a feeling that the forest had eyes, and we were being hunted as its prey. As we loaded the last few items into the van, the howling and the screaming began. Panic set in, and we all rushed inside the van, but in the chaos, we lost Sarah. We searched frantically around the entire campsite and its surroundings. The howling grew so loud that it vibrated my eardrums, making it hard to think clearly. Despite our desperate efforts, we couldn't search any longer. Sarah was gone. We drove away as fast as we could, but the howling continued to echo in our ears. It felt as if the forest itself was closing in on us, suffocating us with its eerie presence. We finally made it off the dirt path and onto the main road. Without hesitation, we headed straight to the police station to report what had happened and that our friend was lost in the woods. The police, however, were less than sympathetic. They lectured us about the dangers of venturing into the woods without any experience and said that incidents like this were bound to happen. They dismissed our claims about the forest being haunted, assuming we were just a group of teens out in the woods trying to party, and in the chaos, someone got lost. We could tell they didn't take this case too seriously, but they still went out to investigate and search. They called in a search team, and many volunteers showed up to help. The search went on for weeks, combing through every inch of the forest. But to our dismay, Sarah was never found. All they discovered were her clothes, which were torn and buried in the dirt, a haunting reminder of her disappearance. I don't think any of us went camping again after that. Losing Sarah was devastating. She was more than a friend. She was family. The guilt and sorrow weighed heavily on us, a constant burden that we carried every day. All that we had left of her now were memories, vivid and haunting, that would forever remind us of the tragedy that unfolded in those woods. Thanks so much for listening, guys. A quick shout out to my patrons: Kevin Kess, Sabiel Eclipse, 055555, Cormac Wells, Amara, Matthew Steiner, Cupcake Hips, Alonzo, Mr. Sankofa, Michael Milburn, Kozak, Icy Narrates, Jesse Hartley, Eric Cifuentes, Andreas Anderson London, Lawrence Wallen, Geek Sanctuary, Melissa Perez, and this guy. That is someone's actual username. I love that. Thanks again so much for watching, guys. If there's anything you would like me to pray for, I would love to know how I can be praying for you. I hope you have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next video.